Hello, welcome to Cosmos with B. I'm B and I am a clairvoyant psychic medium and spiritual healer based in New Zealand, and Cosmos with B is where I upload all my oracular and healers insights. Today's video is going to be on leaving the dark age, the fear-based realm, in the new heart-centered or heart-based world. So in a lot of spiritual, or we talk about the new spiritual paradigm that's trying to break through. And a lot of people in spiritual circles call this 5D consciousness, but I do feel that has gotten taken out of hand, when in reality it is just coming back into more of a heart-based, emotional, feeling way of experiencing and knowing the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So when I talk about the Dark Ages was a period of consciousness on the earth. So I've talked about the collapse of the masculine ego and also what happened at the fall of Atlantis. So when people talk about the fall of consciousness, they talk about falling into a denser state of experiencing ourselves. And so what happened was we fell into this realm of consciousness that is very dense and feels very, very spiritually and emotionally disconnected from the cosmos, our souls, and our heart-based selves. So up in the higher realms, we are essence and love. And here in the earthly realm, we are very, very dense. We are very immature. And we struggle to make sense of our emotions. And we struggle really badly with relationship. And I think if we look back, I think the best way to look at this is via the generations. If you look at your parents' relationship, and if it was love-based or fear-based or circumstantial-based, or it was sort of like, well, I had a child with this with this woman, and I got married to her because I thought I should, and not because you actually loved her. And so that becomes a circumstantial relationship where you're not really together out of love, but you're together out of how circumstances played out. So that is not heart-based. That is probably fear of how things would look, of how you would be perceived if you just co-parented instead. And all that other stuff. And then if you look at your parents' relationship and that baby boomer generation, a lot of us in our 30s and whatnot have had to clear generational trauma, ancestral trauma, and we have been emotionally and spiritually burdened with parents who are emotionally and spiritually unaware, and then we have had to carry that burden and then clear it off. A lot of that has to do with inner child healing, teen healing, and removing trauma or a dense state of consciousness that has kept you feeling not so good and very spiritually disconnected and very not nice things, circumstantial things. And it's really, really important that we start evolving out of circumstantial relationships because they're not based in the heart. They're not based off true soul connection and a true heart connection with another. And so we are sort of trying to make sense of relationship right now. I think if you're in your 30s and your 40s, a lot of us do not want to repeat what our parents did, or we are looking at our parents and we are thinking, that's not loving, that's not respectful, that's not joyous, that's not pleasurable, and I'm not responsible for my parents' emotions, I'm not responsible for how my parents have turned out or their lives have turned out. And we sort of need to let go this dark ages, the suffering for each other, or taking on the emotional and mental burdens of someone else when that's not joyous or pleasurable or loving or heart-centered. Heart-centered does not mean that you take on other people's burdens or other people's suffering. And you're not meant to, it's like in healthy, heart-governed, higher spirituality, everyone is responsible for what they're cultivating with their own energies. And in the fear-based realm or the dark age consciousness, we are very dark and dense in our emotions and our life force and the way we experience the earthly realm. So that's called darkness. We do not have the heart light open. And so we fail to evolve and grow out of nastiness and jealousy and envy. And we get stuck in this state of consciousness or in relationships with this, with so much narcissism coming out, which is really just really bad emotional awareness and very, very a dense state of immaturity, spiritual immaturity. And when you are in that level of darkness or unawareness, your emotions, you're not aware of your emotions or your heart space. And so that's why it's called the Dark Ages. There is no love and there is no of the feminine, the art of the feminine energy that is starting to open in this new heart-based world. But it doesn't look like it. It's a very in-between, and it will stay this way most likely for the majority and the rest of your incarnation. Okay. The Dark Ages, fear-based relationships, e.g. staying with someone for money, e.g. staying with someone because they make you look good but they don't make you feel good. You feel gross around them, you don't feel a heart connection, you don't feel natural chemistry, it's not fun, it doesn't evolve you. It's just sort of this thing that's stuck together and it's not working. And it did, but I had this thing with someone before and blah, 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 I'm a bit lonely, but if you're more connected into your heart, you wouldn't want a half-assed relationship. If you are more connected into your heart and soul, you would know very quickly and intuitively if someone was for you or not. And a lot of people in spiritual communities talk about divine union or higher relationship or the nature of higher relationship. And really, it's just your open heart. It's not a big deal. A lot of people that I see out there who are teaching or talking about divine union, when I look at it, it looks very, very karmic. And I see this in the karmic crush. That's where you get things like that. You would get narcissist tendencies where it's literally just a karmic past life charge. And you'll come back together again with this person to get some self-respect, some self-love, and to get your boundaries sorted and to move out these very old world medieval relationship patternings that we're still very much experiencing today, and it is a relation to the heart center. So I've been talking about how I've been clearing my past lives, and I've had to and being very aware of my past lives and the dreams and whatnot coming through as my soul was moving through it. So I've had to release myself from all these karmic connections that have kept me in that medieval dark consciousness so I can move into the heart-based consciousness or 5D consciousness. It's not a big deal. It's just a different paradigm of how we experience as our soul here in the earthly realm. And with the heart center, and it's very important, I think, if you are in your 30s and beyond, to do some heart healing and go find a spiritual healer or someone that you really resonates to. You can move out of that density and feeling really icky. I've seen a lot of people talk about the heart center, but when I look at them and just the way that they're conducting themselves, it's ego, and a lot of people will dress up the heart space and the heart-centered relationship and consciousness from the ego and not actually from the heart. And because we are evolving out of that dark state, guess what? You have to go through the process of opening the heart space, and it is uncomfortable. It is hard. We don't know how to live our lives openly and with passion because it is not something that is really tolerated here. And a lot of people are still very much in relationship patterning from the Dark Ages. I'm going to stay with this man because he makes me look really good on Instagram. I'm not going to let him go. I'm just going to manipulate him to stay with me because he gives me prestige on my social media. That's very medieval, and it's not nice, and it's not heart-based. And so if you stay in those connections, you are degrading your heart space, you are degrading yourself and your self-worth, and you're just going to feel completely crap about yourself. It doesn't matter what type of, if it's a romantic relationship or a friendship, it's not nice to be around when there's not a reciprocal life force energetic attraction or just like a resonance with someone where it's nice and easy and respectful and you don't have to second guess yourself. yeah, so at the heart center, I had, with the feminine energy, I obviously incarnated and experienced some really horrendous things, as we all do. And through the process of working with my heart space, and I went through a type of, I think it is like re-experiencing the emotional, like an emotional purge, of the heartbreak and the pain of being treated so badly. And this is not me. Every single one of us, maybe we incarnated into a family where the heart wasn't open, or it is well worth it, because you kind of like came through an open heart. You've had someone, there's bullying that happens at high school. There's all this stuff that can happen to us that can really just shut that heart space down, and that sensitivity and that connection that is actually makes you feel better in your body. And you're able, more so when that heart space is open in the aura and the energy body, you're able easier to decipher someone's energy in front of you, and if it's a match or not, like that, if that heart space is open, and you're able, the energetic power and the grace and the poise that can come through the open heart space and the discernment. That's not loving energy. You're not being respectful. You're being jealous. No, thank you. As self-respect and self-worth and self-love, the solar plexus and the heart space, I've talked about the connection with the solar plexus, empowered and love with the heart chakra. And so I re-experienced this emotional purging, and it was very, very uncomfortable. And because for me, in my personal journey, I'd experienced a lot of things early on in life that were not nice and were quite abusive, and then that pattern continued right up throughout my entire life, because that's all I knew. And so I was allowing very not nice friendships and whatnot into my life, because I didn't know any better and I was not being loving of myself. And now I'm going to talk about the rose and with men in the heart space and relationship, and with women as well. When a woman is disconnected from the heart space, or she has not done any spiritual work, or she's very in the ego spirituality, she's not going to be able to help you have a better relationship. And in this new heart-based world, it is the divine feminine, or the woman, that are leading us with relationship. And I've said this in a previous video, with the return of the matriarch, that is a new planetary consciousness of the divine feminine, the return of the matriarch, and a big emphasis on love and relationship, and mothering children, and creativity and beauty. And so we get to invite these energies back into our lives after, for how many eons we have been sitting in the dark ages with no heart, and it's horrible art, may I say. And we get to evolve into something more kinder and more beautiful with the heart space and the divine feminine. And so with men, you have to be a bit more discerning with your partners and who you're picking, and if this woman is mature enough to be having a relationship with, because men can't actually open the heart space without the initiations of love with the divine feminine. And this is where we get men that are very egotistical with women. We get men who treat women badly because they're disconnected from their heart, or they fail to see the purpose of relationship, or they do not know how to care for a woman because they do not have that heart connection with a woman. And usually a woman will be the grand initiator, whether that is a really intense breakup for your heart space to open, or you meet someone that activates that for you, and opens up your heart to that energy, is because the woman herself already has that feminine energy that you need. And you can't move out of these realms of being a man where it's horrible without the help of the divine feminine or a woman. You can't move out of feeling negative and the mind, and your dense, heavy body is nothing without the love of a woman or the divine feminine. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the rose, the energy of rose, the rose tincture that I took And if you want some help with your heart space, or you just have had a long run of really bad circumstances and you have struggled to get out of bed, because what can happen also with that heart chakra and the heart center that's shut down is you can fall into a very dense state of consciousness, or this what I call mainstream consciousness, this depressional state where you find it hard to get out of bed and go to your job, or you are forcing yourself to make money because, or something has happened a long time ago that sort of pushed you down into those depressional realms of being a person here in the earthly realm. Things like war, things like child abuse, things like really bad relationship after really bad relationship, or just where you've been in circumstances where, or you have tolerated really bad behavior, or you have been, as for me as a woman, I have deeply struggled with other females, and it was very hurt heart a little bit when I thought I had a friend, but really it wasn't a friend at all, and it kept happening, and it had a lot to do with the womb space and also my self-respect and love for myself. So when you tolerate really bad relationships, you are shutting yourself down in the heart space. And this is where boundaries and discernment come in, with a very huge open heart center. And it's a learning curve for so many people when it comes to relationship and how you are in your life and whatnot. And a lot of times people believe spirituality is suffering for other people, having very bad, weak boundaries. No, thank you. In this new heart state consciousness, it's not about saving other people. It's not about being a guru, and it's not about, Okay, so that's disconnection from the heart space. People can say anything under the sun, but once you have an open heart space, so you've been through the initiations of the heart with love and divine feminine, you can look at people very quickly and see if their heart is open or not, and where their state of consciousness is sitting. So with the rose tincture, I was working, and I went into the Wellington Apothecary, and I taste tested it, and then I went on my day while I was working, and I experienced little heart openings while I was working a job. And I came back and bought the bottle, and so I started taking it. I did this on my Aphrodite's Gardens Instagram story if you want to go watch it. A tincture of rose with elderberry tea, and it was so profound. Like, I thought milk thistle was intense. I talked about milk thistle in my psychic protection, but the heart, the energy of the rose and the tincture together in my energy body cleared out these pains, these really, really deep pains and hurts that I'd experienced throughout my lifespan so far, that I didn't know I was carrying. I had no idea that I was so shut down in my heart space, and it was, I was very disempowered, especially in relationship, and not knowing basic energetic rules of relationship and all these other things that no one teaches us. And without an open heart, you can't actually be in relationship properly with someone. It's actually very hard, and it's not connective. And the rose tincture almost was like there were these heavy lumps around my heart. And this is where, when women don't work with their heart, they can get very, very butch in their energy, and they're not feminine, and they're not fun, and they're not flowy, because you're just so, and with the womb as well. But when the heart space with a woman is not that open and pink, and you're not like really feeling that in your chest, you are disconnected from the divine feminine. I don't care how many outfits or crowns you put on. I don't care how much you talk about the divine mother or the divine feminine. If you cannot feel a really deep love within yourself in the heart chakra, you are not connected to the divine feminine and the heart-based consciousness. So yeah, I would highly recommend to take a rose tincture if you have had really trying relationships or you feel disappointed. When we are in that state of energy, we don't feel good. Our bodies feel horrible. We are disconnected from the heart and the soul. We can't, it's hard to make ourselves do things. We have no purpose, and we have no passion, and we have no drive without the heart. And if you just look at your parents' relationship and maybe your childhood, you will probably need some heart healing or some help with the emotions and to understand your body. This is when you get very, very shut down woman. I talked about this in the How Do We Get Butch Woman? That came from a dream, and how we get very masculine women that act a little bit like F-boys in relationship, but they're grown women, and they don't have that feminine grace, or what I call like the art of the feminine. They're rude, they're obnoxious, they're two-faced, and there is nastiness, or there is arrogance, or like party pooper energy. It's not very nice. Or there's no sociability, that natural feminine grace in social situations. Yes, so I would highly recommend to take a rose tincture. I'm not a trained herbalist yet, but I just took it from my dreams, and then I forgot that. And when I finished the bottle, it continued to work on my heart space, and it brought up all these realizations to me about where I was not being so loving towards myself. And it will illuminate your boundaries and your love for yourself and what you should be accepting with the heart. Yes, and it will definitely highlight maybe high sensitivity that you hide. Everyone is sensitive in their own ways, and we pretend that we are not sensitive. And we also are very nasty to each other here in the earthly realm, and we forget how that can affect someone else. And when you have an open heart space, you're not purposely going to be nasty to someone. That's the old dark age consciousness that we're evolving out of, and a lot of this new consciousness has to do with the heart space and the return of the divine feminine. I want to say goodbye to the dark ages, because relationship isn't fun. How we experience ourselves isn't fun. There's no art in beauty. I feel when you open that heart, if you get a piece of front of an art piece, you can instantaneously feel how it's been made and the intention behind it. It is very funny, because now when I get in front of some art, I can feel if it's being made with purpose and passion, no matter how ugly it is, versus art that's just been made for very surface but looks very artsy, and it doesn't do it for me. And when you have that heart space open, the resonance is very strong with things around you, and it is like a guiding light for your soul. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that was helpful.